Hi, this is Kemper Holt for AV Showrooms, and this is a review of the Acora SRC-2 speakers. When we're talking about box loudspeakers, one of the first topics we talk about is the box itself. What's it made of? How big is it? What's the shape of it? Everyone seems to be trying to make a non-resonating box so the speakers do all the sound and minimize the colorations. Well, some speakers even have names. The Wilson has X and V material. Alta has damp hard. Von Schweikert has a triple layer constrained damping system. And Magico uses carbon fiber and aluminum, all to try and reduce cabinet resonances. They want nothing but the speakers to contribute to the sound of the speaker. Eliminating resonance from the box allows only the drivers to account for the sound. Aside from a DIY project Google turned up, I believe that Acora is making the first commercial loudspeaker out of stone. And the stone is precisely African black granite. The Y of granite is the negligible resonance of it and its resistance to compression, which will become important later. The Who is Valerio Cora, whose family has been involved in marble and granite fabrication for over 50 years. Val saw the value of using stone early on, but couldn't make it happen. Tried, got mixed results. But around 2014-2015, the technology to make 8 pieces of 3-centimeter granite look seamlessly joined was mastered. And about 3 years later of fine-tuning, the Acora Acoustics was launched, being official, even though the basic design had been around for 20 years in Val's head. The SRC-2s are a 2.5-way, 3-driver, 92.5 dB sensitive, rear-ported, floor-standing loudspeaker, and they are solid, 244 pounds each. They come in a double-walled, heavy-duty cardboard carton that's been redesigned so that you can just slide a dolly right under it when it's in the carton, pull it out, no weight, pull it out, roll it right to your listening room, no muss, no fuss. So they really made it easy to deal with heavy loudspeakers. Val came down just before the COVID-19 hit, and the two of us easily unboxed the speakers and used my dolly to move them into my listening room. They are right-sized at about 44 inches tall, 18 inches wide, 14 inches deep, and they have a big metal plate on the bottom that keeps them stable, and that's where you screw the spikes into. We left off the spikes for about an hour as we measured and positioned the SRC-2s. Ended up with 0 toe in, they're firing straight ahead, and then we threaded the spikes into the base and leveled everything off. Now for the nitty-gritty. The drivers are all from ScanSpeak, 2 7-inch mid-bass and a 1-inch beryllium tweeter. Val auditioned many drivers of diverse materials and manufacturer and chose these drivers based solely on their sound quality alone. But he doesn't leave them alone, of course. It would appear that Granite is the talking point of the SRC-2s, but I believe the crossover is the magic sauce here. Simple with steep slopes, simple being critical. Val estimates, because of the clock on his audio research amplifiers, about 7,000 hours of listening resulted in the production model, including the crossover. The crossover took into account the values, the brands, the alignment of the components on the board, the substrate board material, the isolation of the board, the screws, and the torque used on the screws. He left nothing untouched. All the variables have been tried out, and he figured it out. Again, not leaving them alone, all the drivers are disassembled and modified to match the system, again, to minimize the number of parts in the crossover, keeping it clean and simple as possible. That's what helps the speaker seem so transparent and so clear. The crossover is simple and easy and very few components. Now, to reduce the components, Val really doesn't like the sound of resistors in the signal path. So in order to exclude them, he delicately removes voice coil windings from the tweeter to precisely match the sensitivity of the tweeter to the 7-inch drivers. Thus, no resistors, thus the transparent, truthful sound. I mentioned earlier one of Granite's many advantages. It doesn't compress, not even a little. Well, when a driver is fastened to a baffle and the cone moves, as the cone moves forward, the basket wants to move backward. And on softer materials, the driver does compress the baffle, which results in a loss of transient attack and sensitivity. The resistance to be compressed of the granite allows the electrical signal sent to the driver to be translated into precise motion, and it results in a higher sensitivity. And that's it for the technical aspects of the speaker. Now let's move on to the more fun part, the listening session.
Il s'est glissé dans nos pensées et à notre insu. A traverser jour traversé l'idée reçue. Qu'en s'éloignant petit à petit de notre enfance, les corps vieillissent, les cœurs se ferment, que l'on n'échappera jamais à la déchéance, que l'on n'y peut rien. Au pain battu, il n'y a pas d'autre alternative, pas d'autre issue. Et quand nous jetons tête baissée sous son par-dessus, le temps passé n'est pas passé. Inaperçu. On s'est aimé, cœurs enlacés, et dessous, dessus. Commencer tout. On commençait sa douceur. Mais tout ça vaut rien. Tout ça n'est plus. Et si l'on meurt, c'est à cause de l'idée reçue. Quand je tombe sur le feu sacré, son par-dessus le temps passé. N'est point passé. Inaperçu. Le temps passé n'est pas passé. Inaperçu.
That was Michel Jones, and I felt he was right in the room with us. Especially notable were the finger snaps, which sounded just like someone snapping their fingers, but really got me was the electric bass, the power, you could hear the resonances of the strings. It was wonderful. It really got me involved in the piece. And his voice, he was right in the room, I thought. You could hear his intonations, inflections. What a wonderful piece. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. Again, it's Michel Jones. Many speakers need to reach that point of volume where they come into their own, on cam, I like to say. To my delight, the Acora sounded on cam at lower levels, providing a fully involved experience at levels, let's say, below 80 dBs. That's important currently with everyone working from home. The music springs from such a black background with every buried detail audible at levels that didn't draw complaints from anyone. I've got Jennifer working upstairs and my neighbors. I could listen to these all day and not get fatigued and without worrying about my neighbors or Jennifer. They were involving and emotionally intact at reasonable levels, not just at full tilt boogie. When I had the opportunity, I did twist the knob, and I blissfully rocked out to big bands like Linda Ronstadt with Nelson Riddle, Gordon Goodman's Big Fat Band, Zeppelin, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Stones, Slim and the BBs, Beck, and I got the room pressurizing, dynamically exciting experience I was hoping for. So yes, they play loud, without strain or glare. I'll touch on some of the Acora's typical audiophile traits shortly. But if a speaker can't make voices and instruments sound real, then great dynamics, soundstage, or detail just won't make up for falling short on accurate timbre. The first thing I noticed about the SRC-2s was that they disappeared totally. I mean completely. You cannot tell any sound is emanating from the speakers. Plus, the drivers and hardware are all black. So even without grill cloths, they vanish visually as well. As you can see, they're firing straight ahead, and I think that's on purpose. The off-axis response is just right. First thing I noticed, they throwed a wider than the speaker stage, and my front wall appeared to go a dozen feet into my neighbor's. Most importantly, the SRC-2s get timbre spot on. First thing I noticed, how stunning voices sounded. So real, so natural, people just came across as themselves in shocking accuracy. Whether it was Dean Martin, Linda Ronstadt, Cat Stevens, London Grammar, Joni or Ricky Lee, the singer appeared right between the speakers, correctly sized, focused, three-dimensional in space, with all their intonations and breathing laid bare, completely involving. Voices are magic. The separation of the individual singers, plus the exquisite harmonizing of Crosby, Stills and Nash, the Nylons, or the Eagles was just beautiful. For me, the word truth kept popping up in my mind. Everything just sounded so real. Piano reproduction, which is difficult, was thrilling, from conveying the percussive nature of hammers hitting the strings to the rich resonance of the soundboard and its decay. Especially the intonation of how the keys were played brought me into the music emotionally and held me spellbound. Keith Jarrett's Cone concert was more involving than ever. Again, the accurate timbre these Acoras deliver is the foundation upon which all their other benefits build on, and they check all the boxes. The thousands of hours that Val spent listening and deciding on component values and brands and matching driver sensitivities, and he used all kinds of different electronics driving them, solid state and tube, were well spent as they result in a very coherent speaker top to bottom. Nothing stands out. You cannot hear the crossover point, and it's hard not to smile or tap your foot when you're listening to music. Now, if you like to follow complex bass lines, the SRC-2s may be your ticket. Precise is the word I heard here. Just as you heard on the Michel Jones piece, the Acoras allow you to follow without straining what Ray Brown or Victor Wooten are laying down. They reach down into the low 30s in my room, and they treat, as you heard, that 50 to 250 hertz power region with plenty of punch. The dynamic and low bass prowess was very evident, with Andrew Litton conducting Holt's Planets, Bellafleck's famous Flight of the Cosmic Hippo, or Tracy Chapman's Mountains of Things. Because the SRC-2s are so balanced, it's hard to play favorites, but the mid-range here is just magic. Well-recorded strings, woodwinds, horns, all sound so real it's spooky. I'm sorry to keep using that word, but that's how I hear it. Vocals are wonderfully rendered, so natural and easy, and so distinct. Don't be worried about that beryllium tweeter. It is not a bright speaker, but neither is it very forgiving. It is accurate, so feed it bright and brittle, and that's what you'll get. But if you want to tell if the cymbals are Sabian, Zildjian, or Paste, the Acoras have you covered. The listening room is also our TV hangout spot, and at least a dozen times the Foley effects in a movie have caused us to think, someone knocked on the front door, some fell over in the garage. The sounds of a door closing, glass breaking, a hinge squeaking, or a gunshot are all too real at times. Another thing, the SRC-2s will reveal the strengths and weaknesses of all the gear in front of them. So you better be prepared to do a little shuffling or buying, as a matter of fact. I removed a Class D amp, and on Val's suggestion, I borrowed a loom of Cardas clear cables to make my system sing. I'm using a Bricasti M3 with its network option via Ethernet into a VAC Signature 2A preamp and a pair of Klaus's Odyssey Kismet monos to complete my system. Truth and accuracy. These are the words that describe the SRC-2s and propels them into the Summit Flight class, adding or subtracting virtually nothing while being emotionally expressive and a joy to listen to for hours on end. If you are in the market for top shelf speakers, then you really need to add the Acora SRC-2s to your must-hear list. You might fall for them as hard as I have. I'll also mention that the Acora speakers, the other Acora speakers, have a very similar sound, and Val suggests you let the size of your room determine the right speaker that you pick from Acora. They sound very similar, and I heard the SRB little stand mounts in a very large room at Rocky Mountain fill the room with ease, so don't overlook them. Thanks again. This is Kemper Holt for AV Showrooms.
Well, thank you, Kemper, for an outstanding review. I had read over the script of this review prior to shooting the video today, and he's describing exactly what you hear. I decided to come into the shot because we played the track through again, the Michel Jones, because I was putzing around during the first playthrough when we were shooting the video for you guys, and we turned it up on the as a same level for another go through, and I've never heard the recording like that before. I didn't realize how much how much depth and depth of field, and there was a focus to all of the information in the mix that I never heard before. But what got me was a transient response. It was so realistic. And the bass, it had so much information in it. There was so much tone and color in the bass, as Kemper mentions, in that bass presence region, 50 to 250 hertz, down in that power region. Man, it's real. It's just real. This is a speaker that you've got to consider. This speaker joins the big leagues. Watch out, big guys. Acora's in town. This is a great speaker. You guys got to check it out. I'm so excited I had to come up and tell you about it too. Peter Berninger, thank you, Kemper, for a great review. Acora loudspeakers. Wow, thumbs up. Cool.